Welcome back, guys. I got another episode for you of Brian's Broken Toys. Got kind of a special one for you today. I've got not one, but a pair of Cadillac Allantes. These are 1993 models that I just recently picked up. And if you're not familiar with Cadillac Allantes, this is a car that in 1987, Cadillac decided to compete with the European cars, the Mercedes and Jaguars, head-to-head. So what they did was they actually had, you can see the tab on here, Pininfarina design a car for them that would be really nice and really well built, hand detail kind of vehicle, and to compete against these other luxury brands. And unfortunately, even though it was a really slick looking car and really nice features, they only lasted about 6 years, from 87 to 93, or 7 years. So these cars were built, like I said, exclusively in Italy, designed by Pininfarina, and they built the bodies over there. The one interesting thing about these cars is that when they completed the assembly of the body itself, they were shipped over from Italy to the United States on a specially designed or equipped 747, Alitalia 747 freighter aircraft, which is a really neat feature about them, and they touted that as their air bridge assembly line, I think is what they called it. So it was a really neat thing. So the 93 Allantes, by the time 93 rolled around, I think they realized they were going to discontinue these cars, and they weren't going to continue to produce them anymore. But by 93, which was kind of sad, these cars received the Cadillac North Star motor. So if you look at these things, you had a two-door convertible hardtop with a 300 horsepower North Star motor pulling it along in the front-wheel drive configuration. So these were actually quite stout cars, and they required quite a bit of engineering and testing to make them work under normal circumstances because of the torque steer that was inherent in these. Now, both these cars came from different places. I just happened to find both of them kind of languishing away, abandoned, not abandoned, but just forgotten about. People didn't care. Now, this one here has 100,000 miles on it. It has the hardtop assembly installed, as you can see. This one is unique in that it's a very special color. You probably can see here. This is what's called it's a Cadillac blue green, and it was a special override color, an 01U paint code. So there, I think, if I remember my statistics correctly, there are about 140 or 150 of these cars produced. Now, this car really was not in bad shape. I think back in the day, you can see the carpet and things are fairly nice and well kept still. But what happened, this car had an issue with the VATS decoder module, which on GM cars, it was basically a thing that kept you from starting unless you had the right key. And it was real popular in the 90s and 2000s. Well, what they did, whoever got a hold of this car, they decided they were just going to chop up the wires and bypass the VATS module. And of course, they couldn't get it to work right. So they cut everything up, trashed the steering column, and, you know, we've got another steering column in here that's an attempt to get past this messed up steering column. So I'm going to be tackling this to put this back together again, get it back on the road. But as you can see, everything is real nice as far as fit and finish. It's a solid car. The hardtop is actually made out of aluminum by a company in Switzerland, so it's real light. This one has the chrome rims on it. I got the fuel tank dropped now because I'm trying to get a new fuel pump in there, because obviously the fuel pump was no good. So I just pulled this one in. But you can see even the trunk on these cars is all lined with carpet and real nice fit. So it's a neat car. This was a car built towards the very end of Cadillac Allantes production in March of 93. Excuse me. So I think there were only about 3 more months of cars built after this one. This car here was discovered from another owner, and it was only built 2 months before this car in January of 93. So these cars are only about 1,000 cars apart. in production. And so it's got the same, North Star motor. This is called the Hawaiian Orchard, or Red Pearl Metallic, I think is what they call this. This was actually the most popular color on the Allantes for that year. But as you can see, it's pretty raggedy. It's got a lot of clear coat fading. It's only got about 120,000 miles. And of course, somebody sideswiped it somewhere. So I'm going to have to do a little body work on this one. This one actually does run still. But man, it has been really neglected. And I'm talking, leaves and trash everywhere, and they tore up the center console. So I'm gonna have to fix that. It's got a little bit of mold in it, but it's a shame because these are nice cars and they deserve better than this, especially considering this car was north of $60,000 when it was new. So it was not a cheap car by any stretch of the imagination. Now this car, you'll notice too, has the soft top on it versus the hard top, because this was not a hard top equipped car. So it was kind of like the Mercedes of the day. You could get one with the hard top on it. And the blue-green one does have a hard top or a soft top. It's just underneath the other. But you can see here, that's what the inside of it looks like. It's all carpeted and put together. So I will keep an update. I've got separate little video playlists of these cars as I begin to work on them and figure out what to do. First things first, the blue-green one's going to get another fuel pump put in it and the steering column put back in. And the red one here runs, but the alternator's bad. So first thing we'll probably do with this one is try to find our alternator, because on this motor it's buried all the way. You may not even be able to see it. You can just barely see the pulley at the very bottom there. So I've got to take everything apart here in the front to get that alternator out of it, and then find an alternator. I'd like to get a set of original rims for it too, because these rims don't look that good to me, but that's just me. So definitely I'd like to ask if you have any suggestions, or if you're familiar with these Allantes, because they seem to be kind of a forgotten car. You don't see them around hardly at all, and the few people I've had notice them have been intrigued by them, but it's almost one of these early 90s cars that's like lost to history. It's kind of weird, So keep tuning in, subscribe, comment, tell me what you like about what I'm doing here, and I will keep playing with these cars and see what I can do to get them back on the road. So thanks for watching, guys, and I'll catch up with you next week when I got some more updates. Thanks.